Good afternoon. My name is John Holbert. I'm with the Community Media Center, and we're here today at the American Legion in Westminster to talk to Wilbur Haines. It's July 26, 2012, and we wanted to talk to Wilbur about your pre-war experiences, some of the experiences that you had before the war, and you actually went in to the Army before the war started, and then some of the activities that happened in and around D-Day when the forces went in on Normandy. And there was an incident that you talked about where you actually met an American citizen that was in the German Army. And he was from Littlestown, Pennsylvania. We'll talk about that. And then some of the other things that would have to do with some of the pictures that you have here today. So, Wilbur, you actually were born and raised here in Westminster, right? You were from Westminster?
Yeah, from Westminster.
Westminster?
I was born down in the Gis area near Gamber.
Okay.
That's where I was born.
Right.
And my father died, and I was 5 years old.
Right.
And my sister, she was 3, and he was working on an old Model T Ford, and he had a heart attack or something, or a stroke back in 1925.
Yeah.
And mother told me to go out and get him for breakfast, and I was little, but I remember going out there, and then she hollering and screaming, and come find out he had a heart attack. He died.
Oh, wow.
So then I moved in from grandparents, my mother and us, and on a farm. And of course, we had no electric and heat with wood.
Where was the farm?
Down in Bartholomew Road.
Okay.
Yeah, down in Bartholomew and Lenton Road on the corner. But the old farm's still there, but it's all grown up in woods now.
Oh, okay.
And I think we had 150 acres and had a pair of mules, a pair of horses, and one stray horse we used her to haul milk out to there and worked her in a garden.
Yeah.
The old stray horse had 5 altogether, and then we milked 8 to 10 cows by hand and hauled her milk out to Liberty Road on a buggy, and we done that when we was about 10, 12 years old. Me and my uncle, he was a year older than me.
Yeah.
And then then we walked 2 miles when I was in the 2nd grade. We walked 2 miles a day to school.
Wow.
And there was some other lived farther than us away and walked farther than that yet. When there were buses, all dirt road. And if it was raining hard, then grandfather would hook up the buggy and pile us in a buggy, and we used old tablecloths to keep the rain off.
Right. Oh, okay. Walking to.
There wasn't no raincoats.
Walking to school and everything.
Yeah.
And I think you stories before and everything. You said you learned how to drive a truck.
Yeah.
When you were working here in Carroll County.
Yeah. Well, started out. I got a car when I was 16. I set traps and got a car.
Okay.
And then an old 28 Chevrolet. Give $18 for it. The man wanted $25, and I had $18, and he let me keep the rest to get license for it and other things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I had 28 Chevrolet, and I learned to drive that.
Right.
Well, then Grandpap lost his farm in the Depression, 39, I think it was.
Right.
He lost his farm, and they took the ground away from him, but he kept his horses and cows, and then he went to farming on shares.
Okay.
So we moved over to Gamber, renting a farm.
Right.
And I had to get a job. So I got a job at Foster Brothers down in Workington Valley mushroom plant.
Okay.
So I got a job down there, and I worked on the farm mostly. It was a farm, big farm with a mushroom plant. And then the next thing they got a couple of trucks, and when truck drivers, we hauled manure from the horse farms. So I learned to drive. I could drive a truck pretty good then, but I learned to drive a truck there. That's where I learned to drive it. And then I was working there. Then we got 20 cents an hour for 30 days. Then we got up to 25 cents an hour. Quarter. It was no time and a half them days.
Yeah.
And so I worked there, I guess, about a year and a half. And then a couple guys come up from Virginia, worked there. They worked in the coal mines down there, and they helped us. And really, one funny thing was, one guy, his name was Rel Keene, he was working with us, and he said we need more money, so we went on a strike, and most of us got fired. So he left and went back to Virginia.
After you got laid off?
Yeah, I laid off, and
Yeah.
I got a. Yeah, I was driving a truck. I got fired too, and where did I go? Thomas Benton Hunter. Yeah, I think I went with Thomas Benton Hunter there. Then I
Wow.
worked with them because I had an uncle who was a boss there.
Uh-huh.
But wanted to get back to Israel Keene. We was over in France along the road, standing there, convoy, and the infantry went through. And I think it was some infantry. It was 29th Division infantry was moving past us,
Right.
and some guy hollered my name, and he run out of the infantry racks. He was just walking sloppy,
Right.
and he was this round King. he was in the army too, and he see me, and we hugged each other.
Oh my gosh.
He's in the army. He joined the army down there.
So that was about 4 years, probably about 4 years after all that, right?
It was 39.
Oh, 39, okay.
Before that, yeah, because that's
uh-huh.
when I was working down there when the Japs, when the Germans invaded Poland.
Poland, yeah.
Yeah, in 39. Yeah, I was working down at Foster's then.
Oh, okay.
So I run into this road.
Wow, so it was about 5 or 6
Yeah,
years
well,
after
and
that, yeah.
of course then they kept hollering at him. He was way ahead. He took off, and I never see him again.
Oh, wow.
But I drove a truck in, and of course the next thing I stayed there a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
Well, I went to Thomas Benton Hunter, and I was working there, and then I got laid off in the fall. And then I got a job down at Woodbury Mills in Baltimore, and that was taking rolls off, and they was making canvas for tents.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
it was, I don't know, a 4 or 5 story building down Woodbury Mills, big place.
Right.
And
That was downtown Baltimore.
Yeah, right there
okay.
back of Park Circle, down in that around the animal game area where it keep down close to that. It's still a commercial area.
Okay.
As far as I know, a couple of years ago, showed them old buildings, but they've been converted to offices and like that. So then I got drafted from there, and I had a good job there. I worked 4 to 12, and we take rolls off, and most time you just watch them light come on, you go down and take a roll off,
Right,
Just with 2 guys.
Right.
And all the rest was women.
Really? No
and
kidding.
mechanics, we
Yeah.
took rolls off, and the mechanics said,
You had to do the heavy lifting, I guess.
yeah, we done the lift and took the rolls off and wheeled them on a cart down and weighed them and stenciled them and put them on an elevator and shot them on down to the main floor where they died and waterproofed them, yeah.
Right.
And there's where I got drafted from.
Right, okay.
And I was getting, I was getting drafted, and they sent me a letter to notify. I was diamond for the draft. And then they sent me a letter that I was going to be inducted on about the 15th of December.
And this was 1940?
Yeah, I was in 40, yeah.
1940,
Yeah,
okay.
it was 1940. So I was being inducted about the middle of December. So here I had some friends was in the 29th Division down in Pikesville in the 110th Field Territory. I had 2 cousins and some buddies. They was down there, so I went down to sign up to go with them. But when my cousin took me down, when I got down there, first thing he asked me, he said, "Are you being drafted?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "This is a state government army, and the federal government's drafting you." So.
Oh, so you went to the wrong place.
No, he said, "We never run into that." That's what the lady at the draft board. No. Oh, that's what the sergeant told me down there. So she said, "You got to get a release from the draft board, then you can come down and join."
Oh,
that's the way
I
it was.
see. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's how it was.
Yeah,
Because they never run into that,
Right.
at that time. So anyway, I had to come home, and my cousin took me down to the draft board, and I went in there. There was a lady head of it, and I told her I went down to join the Army and National Guards, and they said I got to get a release from here. And I said, "You got to give me a release." And she said, "Well, I never done this before. I don't know about that." And I said, "That's what he told me."
Right.
Of course, all telephones. So then she said, I don't know, it was the middle of the week, and a couple of days later, I was to go back and check with her. So I went back and checked with her, and she said I could join, come in, get my release papers. And she had my release papers. I think she made them up, legally.
Right.
And I went down and joined the National Guards.
Oh, okay.
And that was right around the middle of December. Right after I was going to be inducted, that's when I done that.
Right.
So then I signed up there then, and then they told me I didn't have to come in until February the 3rd. They're going in for a year. So I didn't have to worry about it. And they all got a Christmas holiday off. You know, they didn't have to go in
2-3 weeks.
So February the 3rd, they was going back in for regulars to stay. You know, for things. So anyway, I went in with them, and trucks picked us up in front of the house. You know, because I had 2 cousins there that was on National Guards.
Okay.
But I didn't have no uniform on.
Right.
And they had their uniforms on all ready to go, and they told me what to wear and bring towels and soap and razor and all that.
Yeah.
So we get to Pikesville. I had John Booth, a good friend of mine. He said, "I'll tell you what to do," and I got a cot. We slept on the cots in there, and I got a cot. Then I went in to get my uniform, and they put me in a World War I uniform. Didn't have no uniform to fit me.
Right. I think you have a picture there of that. Is that the one you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, that's a pants coat. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's cavalry boots.
Oh, okay.
See, it was a cavalry outfit, and I had them breeches, you know.
Yeah, the breeches pants.
Yeah, I had them
Yeah.
But the shoes were a little too big for me, and they was real rough.
Right.
And you couldn't shine them, and everybody else had leggings on.
Right.
And I had them boots on, and them pants, and that was an old hat with artillery piece up emblem on it. And of course, while I was there, General Record come in to interview the troops, you know, talk to us.
Right. So
when he come, I didn't know nothing. I didn't say sir or nothing. You know, they was all trained because they went down, I think, twice a month on Thursday nights.
Oh, okay.
The National Guard.
They were National Guard, already been trained.
And I wasn't trained. See, it was a couple come in like me, but down different areas.
Yeah.
So anyway, they come in. I fell out, and John Booth said, "Stay beside of me." And I stayed beside him, get out there. And we was about the 4th or 5th row, you know, standing there. I guess I was standing there sloppy, you know.
Right, yeah.
And this general, all the staff was out front, and after a bit they opened ranks, and of course they marched up, and I stepped up too. And after a bit, you know, he opened ranks, and he stopped interviewing. He gave a speech first about why he was in and all that. I don't know what that was about. You know, it was about the war.
A pep talk.
Yeah, a pep talk. So he gave us that and told us he was going to be in for a year. So he opened ranks, and he come down to rank, talked to him now and then. They'd have the first sergeant, a captain, 4 or 5 officers with him. So he gets down and stopped in front of me. He said, "Good morning." I said, "Good morning." He said something about, I don't know, "How long you been in this army?" And I said, "Just come in this morning." Then he made a crack about he thought I was in World War I. And then he laughed, you know. That he kind of made a joke.
Because the uniform that you had on and everything, right?
I had a World War I uniform on.
Right.
And they kind of got a joke about it, but nobody else laughed, just the officers laughed, you know, about it. And then he said to me, he said, I want to tell you one thing. He put his finger in real hard. He said, "You got a lot to learn." He said, "You're a private when you first come in. When you put that uniform on, you're a private." I said, I thought you had been a while to be a private. Then he said, "You say sir whenever anybody got stripes on them, any kind of stripes, you say sir." Officers, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Not there. And I said, "I didn't know that." And I didn't say sir. You're supposed to say sir. He gave me hell.
Who's the other gentleman in the picture there? And
that was a guy.
Whose car is that?
I used to board with him when I worked at Foster Brothers.
Okay, downtown.
He lived in Glendon. Yeah, he's been dead now.
Was that his car?
No, that's mine.
Oh, that's your
car.
Yeah,
I run that to Fort Meade and back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, 34 Chevrolet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that's a 34.
34. Yeah.
34 Chevrolet.
Car, yeah. 34 Chevrolet. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And I had a load of soldiers that one night. We upset Washington Boulevard.
Oh, no kidding, really?
Yeah. It's John Booth was with me, but we went to Washington Boulevard following the traffic.
Yeah.
And the brand new 40 Chevrolet, we followed, and I had mechanical brakes, and I just put brakes on that weekend.
Yeah.
So it gets over, and a big junkyard out there. It was a red light. There were a railroad went through on the siding, and so we're going out there, and this car, I thought it was going to go right through, turned amber. He went down hydraulic brakes. He stopped quick. I couldn't stop him. I was getting closer. Here come an old truckload of beans coming at me, and I cut across in front of it and just missed that truck with the beans on, but I hit that Chevrolet, new one in the back, just bent the bumper a little bit. So anyhow, the traffic piled up. I didn't have no insurance them days. You didn't need none.
Right.
And they was colored people, real nice people.
Yeah.
And they must have been at a wedding because the way they was dressed up.
Right.
First thing they wanted to know what insurance company I had. Anyhow, we scraped all together, and in the whole carload, I think we didn't have $10, and he wanted $20, for that bumper and broke his taillight. So it was a man and a woman there, and they paid the Ford for us.
Oh,
We
really?
didn't know them. Yeah, they said them poor soldiers got no money, and this old lady, she said, I'll pay it. So she gave them $20, and they shook hands, and the way it was it. So then I was with 29th Division. Well, I got 29th, and I drove a truck. Because they needed truck drivers. They had Dodges then, in the old 75, and I drove a Dodge truck for them and on maneuvers and stuff. And up Emmitsburg, I can't take that camp. I drove up there. We went up there for target practice one time. So then I stayed with them there, I guess, for a year. I was a couple of years, year and a half or more. I stayed with them till the Japs hit Pearl Harbor, and I was still in the 29th, because we're down in Carolina pulling maneuvers. Of course, we had 6x6s then.
Right.
And we're coming up Richmond, Virginia that Sunday morning, and people's a hollering, extra, extra, and hollering, but we're in trucks. It was December, cold weather, and we didn't know what they was hollering about, so we get out of town, and then they stopped for a smoking break, and I said, Japs hit Pearl Harbor or something, and we couldn't see in the trucks. They just had signs, and I'm driving, I can't see them. A lot of them couldn't make them out. You just had little signs, Japs hit Pearl Harbor, so that was it.
Wow.
So I stayed with them there, and then for a while, and then we pulled maneuvers down the Carolinas, and then we went on to Camp Blanding, Florida. So we were down Camp Blanding, Florida, and we didn't do nothing there but marched. And the next thing, they had a formation down there, and the rumors going around the 29th was going overseas. And they would send them over pretty fast then, because they was fighting up in Poland, Russia. So anyway, we have a call, go over there, that other lot over there. Everybody would call. So every bit my name come up. We didn't know why they was sending us over there. There must have been 30 or 40 of us was over there. It took so many out of each company to be transferred out. So the next thing they left, we stayed there, but we wanted to go with them, So next thing they moved out and got on a train, and they went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, and overseas they went.
They were on their way,
Yeah, so we stayed there, skeleton crew, and next thing a rumor come out, we're going to Fort Hood, Texas. Uh-oh, Japan, where we're going to go. That was the last thing. We didn't want to go to Japan. If I had to go, I want to go to Europe.
Right.
So anyway, the next thing they was on a train, and we went to Fort Hood, Texas, and that was a tank center. And when we got out there, fields full of tanks, and old junkers, was rows of them. Tracks went all the way around them back in 1918, like rows of fields full of them. So we got there, and I got assigned to a tank, assistant tank driver. And I hated that thing so bad, but I'm getting ahead of my story. When we was at AP Hill, a colonel's name was DeMuth. He was an old feller. He was our colonel down there in the 29th Anti-Tank. That's what we was in, part of the 29th Division. So he said, so one time he was hunting a car. He had his brother's boy, he was from Michigan, I believe, up in there somewhere. And his brother's son was in the Navy, and he was down in Roanoke. I believe it was Roanoke, or Hampton Roads or somewhere down there. So nobody had no cars down there, only a few of us. I had mine down there and a couple others, but most of them was way off, not locals, didn't have no cars, mostly because it was Depression time. So one day the first sergeant come to me and he said, you got a car down here, but we had to park them across Route 1 in a field over there. There's a meadow like where we had to park, couldn't park it on reservations because only officers and it had permits, And us listed men had to park it on this farmer's property. So I said, yeah, I got one down there. And he said, the colonel is hunting somebody with a car. He wants to go down to see his brother's son down there. And he said, you got one? I said, yeah, but I ain't think too much alone to him. He don't even speak to me. Which I
He doesn't even know I exist.
Yeah, right, he knew I exist. And I said, I don't think too much alone in my car. We couldn't socialize with them.
Right.
So the first sergeant said, he'll treat you right. He'll pay you good. And he said, if I was you, I'd loan it to him. He'll take care of it. And I said, don't have no insurance on. Well, that's all right. So I loaned it to him. But I never met him, and he gave me $10. And man, I was only getting $30 a month. He gave me 10, then fill my gas tank up. But he wouldn't do it. We got 3 weeks off and stayed in a week for duty at that time. So I'd get, use it a couple weeks, and then when I had my weekend off, he knew it, and he'd get it again. He borrowed, I guess, 4 or 5 times.
To drive down to Norfolk or Hampton Roads or somewhere down there.
Huh?
To drive down there to
Drive
Roads
down there. It wasn't that far, Hampton Roads, like an hour drop. So I don't know what was that, Hampton Roads or but Navy base down, next one somewhere down there around Richmond.
Right.
So anyway, he's the one got transferred out with us, went down in Florida with the 29th. So he got transferred with us. So we was at Fort Hood, Texas, and the old colonel, he never, I never got close to him. But one morning I was going to the PX. I think it was on a Sunday morning or something. I was going to PX, and I see him coming. We're sleeping in tents out there because they didn't have enough barracks. Then they was drafting like crazy. So I seen the colonel coming, and I thought, oh my God, I got to see him. So when I saluted him, Colonel DeMuth. Now this wasn't the one, not record. This is DeMuth, the commander. So when I saluted to him, he said, "Son, I want to talk to you." He called me son. I about flipped, And he said, "Relax, And I'm, I do the military then. I'm relaxed. He said, "Relax. Attention. We're talking now with people, not military." He said, "I want to ask you a question." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "What's that?" And he said, "How do you like them tanks?" And I said, "Sir, I hate them things." He said, "What's the matter with them?" I said, "When you're sitting down in there and we're shooting target practice, and they're using these old tanks, pull them with cables to mounds, you shoot at them when they go through, and we didn't have no earplugs or nothing. You think your head, it rings half the night and everything, And he said, I know it. He said, "I don't blame you. I don't like them either." This is what he told me, Right. So then he said to me, he said, "I got some pull yet." He said, "Would you like to go in the Air Force?" He said, "I want to do you a favor," because he said, "I really appreciate what you've done for me to go down to see my son, brother's son." He said, "I really appreciate it, and I want to do you a favor." And I said, "No, I don't like the Air Force." He said, "I don't know, but," he said, "if you want to get in the Navy, I might be can get you in, but I don't know about the Navy, but I can get you in the Army, any branch you want pretty well at that time," because he was an old guy.
Right.
I said, "I'd rather stay with this outfit, but I'd like to be a truck driver and be supplies like that. Because I know these guys, I got acquainted with them, and I knew pretty well of them, and a couple of them was from up here, but they're all dead now." So, he said, "That won't be no problem." And he said, "We're going to California desert, pull maneuvers for the African campaign." And he said, "I can fix you up, I'm pretty sure, and we're going to got a couple of half tracks going to send out. They're going to be with our outfit." He said, they ain't signed nobody to them yet. We ain't got them yet, but we're going out there the next month or so, and we'll put you on a half track, and then I'll guarantee you'll be a truck driver after that." And then I did. Went out there and drove a half track with a 50 caliber machine gun on, and then next thing a truck driver come open, and I got that, and I stayed on that, and man, I've been tickled with that. And then I got to see a lot of country over England, Home Supplies, and Europe, and all the routes. I put 36,000 miles on that truck. Found the engine blowed up at the Sigfield line.
And this was your truck here.
Yeah, and that's the same one.
Truck?
Yeah.
Now, is this the one that you had in California? Is this the one you had in California?
Yeah.
As well?
No. That come from England.
Okay, when you got to England, you got this truck.
Here in the States, we had steel cabs.
Right.
Then we got to England to give us canvas tops.
Okay. Okay.
Then they sent the Russian Studebaker truck, steel cabs with ventilators and heaters and defrosters in. We didn't got no heaters.
They were real nice, huh?
Yeah, they were luxury, and ours was no heaters, no defrosters. And but I'd seen them Studebakers that the Germans had. They had cabs and had vents on the side. You open the vents, had heaters in them. But I think they had the same engines in, for maintenance part. But they made them. But the Russians had lease and land,
Right. Oh, they had the other trucks. At Ford, I think Ford Motor Company made a lot of those.
Yeah,
trucks
Ford made a lot of them. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I met the guy I was head of the Ford plant in Cologne down at Remagen Bridge. we parked right in front of his house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he talked perfect English. He had a 35 Ford just like I did, American made. Yeah, and he showed me pictures of Detroit. Not only me, but a bunch of us around there,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you went to England, and I think this diary that actually starts here. This is kind of a record. You left Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, in December 1943.
Yeah.
For Brooklyn, New York. Then you boarded the HMS Samaria.
Yeah, right.
On the 29th of December, and then you sailed into Liverpool, England, and you got there on the 8th of January.
Yeah.
In 1944.
Right.
And then you went to England and traveled on, and this is kind of a record of all of the deployments that you had along the way. Goes through, here's in September of 1944.
Yeah.
And then this goes through all the way until March of 1945, where you're still going. And this is when you were in Germany at that point, right?
Yeah, right. That's
into
where the
Germany?
battalion, battalion CP. That's their route. But see, we're in the area. They followed us up.
Right.
But they kept that. I got a guy named Frank Sigelman with CP. I got his picture out in the car. He took care of all that stuff.
Oh, okay. He keeping a record
of everything. He got all that stuff for like that there, and he was from Baltimore.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
he come up to see me a couple times.
Oh, really?
I got a picture of him. Yeah, he used to borrow my camera. He took a lot of pictures with it.
Oh, okay.
He made a thing. He went around and gave a lot of guys. He down here in Green Spring Valley or somewhere is where he was from.
Right.
And he died in. He used to come up to see me 3 or 4 times. He come to see me,
Right.
But he went with me. We all slave laborers and refugees and like that. He always rode with me. He was in charge of that because he could speak a couple of languages.
All right, I see.
I think it was France and some German,
Right.
But
so when you came into Normandy and landed, that was D-Day, and it was a couple days after D-Day.
Well, yeah, it was end of the month that time.
Okay.
We landed. We had Cosmoline over engines. We was at Stonehenge. That's where we was stationed up there. But they moved us down there, and then we put all this gunk on our engines. And while we was there, ambulances coming back, bringing them back from France, just lined up all the time, bring wounded back,
Right.
And we slept there in tents, We was there, I think, 2 or 3 days before we went over. And then we went in, landed at Omaha with the 1st Division. They was already there.
Right.
But we was attached to the 1st Division.
Right.
And we went in and we had on British LSTs. I think it tells you there. But we could, when we hit the beach, they dropped it, and the first one was off. I think it was 4 or 5 ammunition trucks, all loads of ammunition.
Yeah, it says.
But the water,
It says here on the 2nd of July, 1944, disembarked on shores of France.
That's it. And
Omaha Beach, proceeded to rallying point 4 miles north of Formigny, France.
Well, water come up. When we landed, it wasn't no shells not coming in, but the beach was so busy, and they had them ducks going out to the big boats hauling stuff back and fired. And when the first truck went off, water come up over the hood, and the British had to hook them off with hooks. They got out of it, and they had hooks to hook them back, and they had to ban the truck, because the water come up over the hood, the windshield.
Right.
So the trucker driver, they pulled them off, then they backed it out and put the thing up, backed up, moved another area, and then I went off a second. The water come up around your feet, but it never come up over the hood. But they're made to come up, to the hood.
Come up pretty high.
Yeah, come up pretty high. Your exhaust pipes is up. Then you went across, and then you went a little piece, and they were standing there to tell you what to do. And the first thing you had your wrench tied to the mirror to put the fan belt on to clean that gunk away from your water pump and fan belt. So they tell you, blow over there, and then you're quick as you can, you pull that gunk off the motor, around to get that fan belt and water pump going. And you pull that off, and then your wrench was on the mirror, and stick that in your pocket. You were just already made for it. So then you got that off, and you had it off. Then they tell you where to go, and you go up on a hill, and then there you take all this stuff off, gunk. And then there, and right that night, flares. Artillery's are going off way ahead. Flares up, and the bombers come over towards morning. British coming over and bombing. Then the day we stayed there a couple of days before we got organized. Then they sent us to a little town of Bolaroy. But we had our first casualties, I think, there on the 4th of July, strafing, you know.
Right.
But then in there was a rough part, but that's in there.
This is a diary here that you had compiled during your time that you were in England and in France.
There's where it starts.
Right. Start here. Left England.
Yeah.
Sailed for France, and this is on the dates here. 1st July, 2nd of July, landed at Normandy.
Yeah.
And you kept this throughout the war.
Yeah.
Just kind of jotting some notes and everything like that on it.
Yeah, I kept it in another old tab. You know, some of it, and then I had to write over. But now this year here is at there's now when the war's putting your. Oh, I'm in the middle. Yeah, it started. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's what it is there. Yeah.
And you kept this all the way through.
Yeah.
All the way through through the war and everything.
Yeah, I wrote that every day.
Here's September the 6th. Infantry moving up in the rain and mud.
Yeah.
Headed where the armor is. September the 8th. Our tanks move out for a position 5 a.m. with the infantry. Tank crossing in Luxembourg border.
That's when they broke out. Is that what this is?
Yeah.
I was on guard that morning when they broke out of Normandy. We knew it was coming. They built up, you know, for a good while, a month or so, you know, all jammed up. And they was telling us tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock, you're going to hear the planes coming. You know, we knew it. And that morning we could hear them roar. And I mean, it'd give you a feeling that you couldn't believe. Just solid roar way off, you know. Thousands of them come over. You couldn't believe it. People wouldn't believe that.
Airplanes.
British come first. They're night bombers. The British come over and they're going. They're shooting up and you see them coming down. Then after that, next thing the Americans come, and then their artillery opened up. And when they opened up, it's a sight you couldn't believe. The fires are burning. They were born fields. Cattle was killed out in the fields, you know, with artillery. They just pocketed everything, you know. And Germans, they there, and they had blood coming out of their nose, ears, concussion, you know, hit them crazy, you know.
Right.
And you couldn't believe that sight. And then, of course, we moved out, you know, and then they went to St. Lo, you know, and they used our outfit as artillery. We never went in, but 29th Division took St. Lo, you know, and they all blew to pieces, but our tanks didn't go in on that. But then I didn't know we was going to be body carriers.
Was that American wounded or German wounded? German casualties or American casualties?
We never touched no wounded. That's all medics.
Okay.
But what we had to gather bodies, but the Americans gathered their bodies up right away. But they'd let the Germans lay. Okay, some of them lay there a couple of weeks, and it was July, temperature like now. And they'd been there a week or two. They're out dead, no man's land. But when the Americans went, you know, they got out, then we're back behind. Well, we get up there and got to get that smell down, and they was, you know, laying there all blowed up, and Magnus was working on them, and we wasn't attach them if we could. We used ropes. We had a jeep, you know, jeeps, and we'd tie a rope around them, take a shovel, and raise your leg, tie a rope on them, then drag them to a foxhole, gutters, and French around had horses, take the horses and fly dirt, fresh dirt, you know, and then they throw dirt over them. Right there, I used to think in the gutters when they had storms later on, there's a lot of skeletons come out there, was showing up in them gutters, you know, because they had to do something with them, you know.
Right.
So, but then later, after we got through that mess, well, then we never had no trouble like that, you know. But I never got we didn't haul Americans straight away, you know. Some other outfit took care of them, divisions, you know. But later on, when we was attached to others, we gathered up our own dead, and we took them back. And we'd take, you know, go up to companies, take supplies up near as we could get to them. They had these Dodges that run quick. Old 6x6, they're so clumsy, you know, geared real low. And they used Dodges, and they had no governors on. Our trucks had governors on for a while. Then they left to take them off. But we gathered up, you know, Americans and took them back to the grave restoration and bring supplies back. Yeah, and it was something, but we never, you know, hauled Germans much. After that, you know, we just hauled Americans. But the Germans moved theirs more afterwards, but down there normally they couldn't get to them, you know. And we was, you know, back behind them, so they left them lay. But as soon as our guys got wounded, our Americans, you know, we took our guys right off of the battlefield, back right restoration. Yeah.
Now you liberated several French towns along the
Oh
way.
yeah, oh yeah. All them people would hug and kiss you and cry, and we spearheaded a lot. You know, we go to them. I didn't bring out one. I got a cross that I took out of a French house. One time his house was blowed up, and I got a cross with an old man, his wife, and 2 kids was in there, and a shell hit it, and they was all dead. And the food was still on the table where they was eating, you know. And the thing was, America's done it. You know, Germans was in there around the area, and they shelled it. But we got up there, and of course we walked up to look in it, you know, after we went on, you know. The outfit went on, we walked up and looked into it, and they was all sitting there eating, killed them all around the table. And over the door was a crucifix.
Right.
And what got me on the bottom of it, I was reading, I wanted to show it, forgot, skull and crossbones.
Really?
Yeah, on the bottom of the crucifix. And no, I've showed it to different people, and they couldn't understand what it was for.
What the significance of it was, or anything?
Huh?
What the significance of that was?
Something, yeah, it was something they must have believed. They're mostly Catholics, you know, foreign French and whatever, but I can't understand. I still got that. It's got the skull and crossbones on the bottom of her feet, and I wanted to show you if I forgot that. But I still got that, and I hung it over my door, in the kitchen door, for a good while.
In the house where you live?
In the house, yeah. And it's like gold, you know. It ain't no cheap one. It's a expensive one.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I think sometime I'll put my card. Show it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had relayed a story before that in one of the towns that you liberated, they had some French collaborators.
Oh yeah.
That were in the town.
Yeah.
And
it's in here, wrote
the French, the other.
Yeah. They stripped them naked and paraded them downtown. It's in this diary here. You know, yeah, it's in there. Yeah, it's been about September, October. Yeah, the first I seen was an old woman and not old woman. They're 2 heavy-set people and a young girl, and they paraded them down the street naked. You know, and all the people followed them. You know, they didn't have their clothes on, and then the next bunch was about 10 of them, 10 girls, and that was up there near Paris. But it's in there somewhere because I read it. I just read it. I never looked at it for years, but it's in there. But they put this old lady in German Army officer. She had German Army officer boots on, but she was naked. You know, she led the column. She must have had her hair plaited, you know, things. So she shaved around here, you know, around her eyes, and put that German flag, about that big, tied back of her head, down her back. And then they put a swastika on her back, one on her stomach, and one up here, and had all them girls that way. And they paraded them right down the street, road where we was. You know, there was a lot of old people looking at them and booing them, you know, in their language. And where we was at was a brick factory. I don't know what to say here. I guess pretty near here to Washington Road. Big brick factory there.
About a half a mile.
That's where they was going to execute a couple of them girls.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't go down, but they was going to execute them. But what they told us was this old lady, she was head of a bunch of spies. And these girls was collaborating with the German soldiers and with FFI or something, and getting information who the FFI was, Free French Underground,
Right.
and they passed it back to the Germans. Well, then they'd get rewarded, food stamps.
Right. Okay.
But then, as your leaders of that, they execute them. They just give them firing squad.
Right.
That's why they done them.
Yeah, it says here, this is on the 13th of August, withdraw for rest. FFI parade a man and wife and a girl with no clothes on, no hair on. Took them down the hill to brick factory and shot them as spies.
Yeah, right.
That was on 13th and 14th of August. And then over here on the 16th of August, 10 French girls with head shaved with no clothes on were driven through our area by FFI for spies. Some of them were to be killed that day.
Yeah.
That was in August. That would have been 1944.
Yeah, that was getting up. We're getting near Paris.
Yeah.
Because we went right up to Paris. Wasn't no action.
Yeah.
And we went Luxembourg City. Our outfit took that, but wasn't no fighting. And when we went one day, we was coming up with supplies, and our outfit was in Luxembourg City, and we was supposed to fuel them up. Then they was going to go on to the, move on out because there wasn't no fighting. Let's see. We're coming up this road, and it was about 6 trucks of us, supply trucks, all had supplies on, food and rations. We come up, it was a convoy up the road, and they're all waving their hands before we got to Luxembourg. Waving their hands and go back, and what's the matter with them people, We got Luxembourg, we knew that, that's where we were supposed to go to supply them. Crazy, when we stopped, it was a big old Tiger tank was over in a field over to the left, and he'd go a little piece and stop. He'd swing his gun barrel around. There wasn't no tanks in there, it wasn't but trucks. We didn't have a chance. So anyhow, we thought, what the devil's going on? They said they called for tanks from Luxembourg City. 3 tanks supposed to be on the way.
Oh, okay.
Like a couple miles away, Well, ours wasn't worth much against the Tiger. They shoot right through ours. 70 tonners, 50 ton.
Right.
They shoot right through ours and right the other end explode when they went inside. That's what they done. And ours, you see them, you want to run the other way because you give your position away, and they're going to get you right away.
Right.
But that old tank never shot back at nobody. And it went a little bit, he'd go and turn around, look at burrow around, and different ways. But he never aimed it at us. He just swung it around, moved the tank sideways. So the next thing we seen 2 tanks coming, highballing it down across the field, and the next thing was another one way back, 3 of them. They started shooting into that tank, and that tank didn't even turn his gun around at them to aim at them, but they kept shooting maybe 6, 7 times, and finally they knocked it out. And right, these Germans all crawled out after they run up to them, and they all climbed out of it. They didn't get hurt. I don't think that, but they blowed track or engine or something.
Right, yeah, disabled it somehow.
They got out, and when they did, this one guy, he got on it was a tank destroyer. He got a 50 caliber machine gun on top, open turret. That's what we had. This one guy, he mowed them all down, Oh, them officers ready to hell with him. I don't know whatever did, what I guess. But he killed them all.
Oh, wow.
And they could have killed all of them, knocked them out and everything.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know whether they court-martialed him or not.
Oh.
But I know they was upset over it, And they didn't throw no white claws out, but they didn't shoot back.
Right.
And he just mowed them down. Yeah.
You had told a story before about how when you were in a forest area, and this was possibly in Germany itself, that you encountered a German soldier who had actually come from America.
Yeah.
That you had met.
Yeah, we was picking up prisoners, and I said, what was up in the Ruhr pocket? I just can't think. It was in the. But
it was in
they
Germany.
surrendered. There wasn't no fighting. They surrendered. They got cut off. They surrendered. So we went up to pick up the prisoners. Herken Forest, that's where it was. And that there was so heavy pines, real heavy pines, and they had roads through there, but the Germans, they got cut off in there or something, and they surrendered. So they even brought their own trucks with flags on up in the area there. So we goes up to pick up these prisoners, and where I was sitting, there's 3 or 4 of us trucks there, picking up a bunch, and this one soldier, he was up front, young boy, and he said, I'm an American, to me, because I was standing there talking to another driver, and he said, I'm an American, perfect English, And I think I said to him, you look like an American, or joking with him,
Right.
He said, yeah, I'm American. And I said, where are you from? He asked me where I was from. And I said, I'm from America, where are you from? He said, McSherrystown. McSherrystown what? Pennsylvania. Oh, God, give me chills when he said that, And I said, I know where McSherrystown, Hanover. I said, do you know that? He said, yeah. He said, you ever hear of Forest Park? I said, been up there many a time. And then I knew he was on the right path, you know. And I said, yeah, the Forest Park, that big amusement park there. And then Carlin's Park. Never hear that? Yeah, I've been down there, he said. And I said, I'm from Westminster. And he said, I can't place Westminster. How about Cherrystown or something? And he said, no, wait a minute, Littlestown. That's what it was. He said something about Littlestown. You know where Littlestown? I said, yeah, Gettysburg, Battlefield. I know all that. And I said, well, how come you're a prisoner of war? He said, my parents is all from Germany, and they got a big chicken farm, one of the biggest chicken farms up in that area. See, them days, the farmer only had little chicken houses, you know, but he went into it big time. Or something their parents did up there. It was between Cherrystown and Gettysburg on that road. So anyway, he said, well, I said, how come you're in that? And he said, his father and mother, and it was all over in 39 for that summer, and the Germans invaded Poland. They froze everybody. You know, nobody could get out. So his father and mother stayed there for a couple of years, you know, 2 or 3 years over there. And then finally they released them. And then he stayed with his grandmother and grandfather over there. That's why he lived with them, but they never bothered him. He told me what was that, but I don't know what was that, but they never bothered his grandfather and grandmother. And next thing they drafted him in a labor battalion for a worker. He never carried a gun, he was a worker. And they built bridges, that's what he said. And then they surrendered, a bunch he was surrendered. And he was in that bunch. They took, you know, young kids and old people and put them in labor battalions. They didn't use them for fighters. And so I never, you know, traced him out, but one time I was working at the Pleasant Valley Shoe Factory. That was in the 1950s, I think it was, and I was telling this guy about it, and right away he said, damn, I remember something about that, you know, way back a little bit. I'll find out more about it, you know. And I said, I don't know whatever happened to him, you know, that there. But anyhow, later on he said, yeah, he talked to different people. They remember him, but they moved away. So I don't know whatever happened to him. So he was back home, I think, you know.
After the war?
Yeah, after the war, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he come back after his PW, because when I was talking to him, you know, I mean, a couple of buddies, some officers, you know, they stay in bunches, you know, up further, and they seen us having a conversation there. So one of them walked down. He was a captain, wasn't married, you know, he was them fighters. He come down and he said, what's going on here? And I said, that guy there's my neighbor. And he was from out west. You know him? I said, no, but I know where he lived in the area. And he knows where I live. And then he questioned him in, you know. And then he told him to get out, you know. So they had made room for him, his prisoners, and he got outside, and then he got him on the ground there. And then he was questioning him up real good. So then he patted him on the back. He said, we're taking you with us. So they said, we'll take care of him. We'll see he gets back home.
Well, that was good. That was good.
But I wondered what happened to him, you know.
You have two photographs here that you had talked about. This is on the Rhine River,
yeah,
right in the vicinity of the Remagen bridgehead.
Yeah, well,
right?
I crossed that when Patton, we was up Cologne, in that area. In that area was First Army. I was with the First Army. And we was up in Cologne area, and we got up there, and the next thing word come out, Patton's in the Third Army, you know, blood and guts. Patton crossed the Remagen Bridge. It was, I don't know, probably 30 miles, 40 miles. I can't remember now. Patton got across that bridge. So Patton took that Remagen Bridge, that Third Army. So he was so far ahead of his supplies, you know, he went, when he went, you know, he didn't bother a lot of them, he went. So they'd run out of supplies, and he got across that bridge. Caught them in bed, you know. There's only a few scattered troops there at that bridge. He run up on them so fast, you know. They didn't have no Air Force to check the lines or something. I don't know what happened, but as soon as that happened, early in the morning, about daybreak, when he crossed it, well, the next thing, there what we're in, they're going to try to cross the bridge up there at Clone. They'd bombed it all night. That was all in flame. The British bombed it. They bombed at night. And they bombed it, and the next day they was going to try to cross up there. Well, that stopped that. So then when, by mayhem ammunition, not only me, all the ammunition trucks, what they could spare, rushed us down to Remagen Bridge. So we went down that day, flew down. Tanks was going down to give them support. A lot of them were broke down, through tracks. We'd get down there going too fast on the road to get the flop, taking tracks. And of course, they went ahead. They was ahead of us, but we had escorts, ammunition trucks. So we get down to Remagen, the town. We get down there, and this town, where it was kind of a valley down below us. And streets were straight lean. So they took us down to the street, and they put a sign on an ammunition truck. On all ammunition trucks, put them on the windshield, ammunition trucks. But they scattered us out. They set me on one street there, then they had other trucks there too, but ammunition truck out on one street, and another one wet there and there, like that. So we're there, and while we was there, this man come out and started talking to us in perfect English. Sergeant, he started talking to him, Sergeant Schlossman, and he talked to us and told him he was been over Detroit, and he was head of the Ford plant in Cologne, one of the wheels in that. Mm-hmm. And he took us in the house and showed us a bunch of pictures, all of your American pictures, where he'd been around over here, and taxi cabs out in Chicago. He showed us all these pictures, and he had two girls, I guess maybe 15, something like that. But his wife was sick or died or something. She wasn't there. I never see his wife. So then he got to talking about, he loved America and all that, and he was so glad we did blow their town up, and so glad Patton got that river. And so anyway, we gave him I didn't, but some others give him kids some rations, his daughters, they was, 12, 10, 12, 15, give him some. So then he took us out back, and he showed he had a car. He said, I got an American car, genuine American car. And when it was a 35 Ford, it was black. Mine was blue, and I had one exactly like it.
Wow.
It was American made, the British made them, but German made them, but they were smaller, and a little different looking, but they were small car. It wasn't many of them. But he had this regular Ford, and it was under a grape harbor. It didn't have no wheels on, didn't have no starter on it, and generator. He took all that stuff off of it, and and I don't know. Somebody said, "What do you do all that for?" And he said, "Went to Germany, the government took it. That'd been a staff car, because that was, really."
Oh, okay, because that was a nice car.
Yeah, they'd made it up and used it. See, so he said, "I know every part's that." Yeah,
he took it off, and then he was going to put it back on.
Yeah, put it back on. After he got liberated, he got it put it back together again. And we was up in France one time, that was Belgium, and we, as a 37 Chevrolet, this farmer had it, and he had it in the barn over under a haystack, and he dug it. It was set there for a couple of years under that haystack, and we got liberated him. He got it back out and painted up, and it didn't have a trunk on, 37 Chevrolet, but a real cheap model had springs and no trunk. I mean, others too, but most of them did. Like you had a little trunk and knee action on 37 Chevrolet, but you could buy them without knee action. Stripped cheap model, and that's what this was. And it was shiny, he had it cleaned up early. He was running, that was Belgium. They didn't take it from him, let
right.
him have it, but if they sold it. But the Germans, they took all these, good cars for themselves, for government,
In the background of this
I wanted to say
there's a pontoon bridge.
I didn't finish telling that.
Yeah.
When we got over there, I guess about 2 days after we got over there, well, then here they come back and got my ammunition truck. And our outfit was there, but they took me across before my outfit went across to get the ammunition over there.
Right.
Because that ammunition, I think, that time. And they led us up to the bridge, and the bridge was standing, and they were shelling it. The Germans come out with jets. We'd never seen a jet before. And when they come out and they'd come down over that town to try to bomb that bridge, they'd lift that slate off the roof. Winters would break out, and you got away from the houses, you know, when them jets would come in. And I seen 3 of ours. I think it's in the diary. It might be in there. I seen 3 of our planes get shot down at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
Chasing a jet. They tore it after a jet, and our aircraft had bumper to bumper pretty near to keep the airplanes away from that bridge. And they were shooting at it, and now they shoot down our planes.
Oh no.
I seen 3 of them. I seen a lot of them get shot down, but I seen 3 come down at the same time, where our guys had shot them down. Because them jets they wasn't accurate. They was too fast, you know. They'd miss the bridge. You know, but they finally knocked it down, and we lost a tank and crew. One tank and crew went down with it. But several tanks went down with it.
But this bridge that's in the background here, this pontoon bridge, you actually drove across that.
Yeah, 3 times, 3 or 4 times. I know it 3 times. Yeah, you had 2. Had one go, you know, like a highway. One you went over on, one come back on. And when you come down on this, it was a banker. You come down and they'd tell you, you know, be prepared to jump. And if you see it breaking away, if they straight or hit a bump, your bridge will fall apart. That runs swift. That's a fast-moving river.
Oh wow!
And said, jump you on your own and grab a hold of a boat.
Yeah.
Grab a hold of a boat.
One of the pontoons.
But we had no accidents when we went across.
Right.
Our Air Force was patrolling it heavy, you know. Yeah.
And you got assignments. You said that you got assignments. You'd go over there, and then you'd wait here on the French side of the river, and then you'd get your assignments on whether you were going to go back across the bridge or
go to, when we'd take stuff over and unload it at certain areas, you know, for them to get fuel, and then we'd go back over and get another load, you know, because they had built it up, and that's when my truck blowed up. I tell the sergeant, I said, my truck's not carrying very good oil pressure. It's only going up like 10. It should be 30 or 40. It's only going up about 10. But it had 36,000. That was the limit of it because they're geared so low, see. So he said, oh, well, you know, keep going till it blows up, you know. So when they broke out, after they got built up on the other side of the bridge, I mean, them things, we kept building up and go back and fired. When they broke out, and we went out that morning, next thing, my old truck flowed up on it. Just as they broke out, I mean, they was moving out, and we were back. We wasn't on the front. We was back to more to the middle of air, and it started rattling, so pulled her over. And we sat in there while we was there, way up ahead with 2 German planes was strafing up there, and aircraft stuff was flying.
You could have been in that if your truck was still good. You would have been up there, right?
Could have been up there.
So the truck blowing up wasn't a bad thing, I guess.
But they was so much far come, they didn't do no damage that I remembered. You know, they just come in strafe and took off, and everything opened up on them. And
you got a picture here of a downed airplane. Was this an American airplane here?
Yeah, that's a B-17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's nice there. We're in a convoy or something. We had stopped there, and we went over and looked at it, you know, and the guy took a picture of me. I can't make it out. Took a picture of me.
Yeah, there's no date on it.
But it was
down a couple days before we got there.
Yeah.
Standing.
But the plane wasn't hurt.
Right.
But it had bullet holes in it. But wasn't no blood in it. We didn't see any blood, but we seen holes.
They must have gotten out. I guess.
Yeah, that's what figure got out of it. Yeah.
And then here's 2 soldiers standing in a picture here.
Yeah, that's me there. And that guy's Ernie Culver.
Ernie Culver's sitting down with the rifle, and
that's him. This is me there.
Right.
And right back here's where we slept. You see a picture in a minute. But right here where we sat, right across the road there was one of the old German Ford trucks.
Oh, okay.
And it was a 6-cylinder, you know, like here.
Right.
Had a grill on like a 38 Ford. Had been sitting there, and we moved in that area. Had the hood up and the right door open. I'll never forget that, but we never touched it. It was dirt road, and it was over on the ditch, like. So I wasn't there. We was somewhere, but we was doing occupation duty there. So, and two little boys and a girl was playing in it, and the girl was doing something. They don't want you to push the clutch in or something. It was booby trapped.
Oh, wow.
And it killed her.
Oh, wow.
But the boys didn't get hurt, you know.
Yeah.
They shook up, but killed that little girl. And they think she pushed in a clutch or something. Or brake or something, you know, and set it off.
Wow.
Because they'd boot trapped something, but we never bothered it.
And here's a picture of you standing in front of the tank. Now, was this a tank that you actually drove?
Yeah, no, that wasn't. That there's a Sherman.
Sherman.
That was another German tanker or something, and I don't have my picture got there. See, that's a Sherman. You come out the top.
Right. Yeah.
But ours, he had open turret up there. You remember them tank destroyers?
Right. Yeah.
Seen pictures of them. Yeah. But I don't know what it says on there. But that's me taking it.
Not much good these German films. You by now all at the dark. I don't know. I can't make that out.
Okay, no, it's something I took. Yeah. But there wasn't no bodies in that. You know.
And then these two here, I think you talked about. These were.
That there's and we went into Legion. That there's the same day the bulge broke out, 16th.
December 16th, 1944.
And that's where we was at.
Okay.
And we was at the St. Bith area.
Wow.
If you read it, hell, it's Malmedy Massacre, killed on guys. I've seen them there. We was there before. And then they moved us away, and we was out there when the Germans broke through.
Right.
And they killed all them guys.
Right.
And I remember, that there, and that's me there. And
with the helmet. You're the one with the helmet?
Yeah, I'm on the helmet on.
Okay.
And there was my sergeant.
Right.
And this girl here, she's a school teacher, and she got to flirting with us and some way she posed with a picture.
She was from Belgium?
Yeah, she's Belgian girl.
Yeah, okay.
We stayed in her place that night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we couldn't go back to her outfit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went back to the hotel and checked in, and they told us to stay. We couldn't go, didn't know where our outfit was at. And that diary tells you a lot of stuff in there where, they we had a load of fuel oil, and some outfit took it from us, and we had to go back and get another load. They give us a paper. They needed more than our outfit.
And this one, it's kind of hard to see and everything.
Yeah,
but you're in there as well.
I think that's the same girl. That's me there.
With the helmet on.
Yeah, that's me there and her.
You're on the left, and then
I got another picture.
Girl from Belgium.
Yeah, that's Liège.
Liège.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this was the.
That's where we
talked about. This was.
That's where we buried them.
German half-track here.
Yeah, we buried them there. Then Germans dug them back up and put them up in the cemetery.
Right.
In this town here, we was spearheading to this town here, Landshot, and I got more pictures out there in that big one. But anyhow, we were spearheaded. Ain't no fighting. And a big W camp in there, American and British. So when our tanks come in, the Germans threatened they're going to execute them prisoners. As we was getting closer and closer, they're going to execute all the prisoners. So then Eisenhower notified them, the first one you execute that town will be brick dust. We got thousands of bombers and a lot of ammunition. They're going to lay it flat, and Munich would be next. And they had SS troopers in there,
Right.
And boy, they moved out of there so quick when that happened. And when we went in that town, you can look at it, nobody. The town was deserted. Nobody, no civilians, nothing.
Wow.
And we went in that town, and we got in there, and the prisoners were still there, but they was out, walking the streets and everything. But I got some big, they're in that book.
Yeah, over there.
But they're in there, you can see.
Now this was after hostilities had ended and everything.
Yeah, this was taken after the hostility, yeah.
And everything.
And this girl here, she...
Gemunden, right?
She gave me that, we're
right.
No, she gave me these pictures, because I knew her. Because I used to give her oranges and stuff.
And this is her, is this her family here in the picture?
Yeah, that's her there, and that biggest girl was her sister, and then others, some of her relation.
Okay.
And they lived down the other end of town. And we had a PW camp down there, where to clean up railroad tracks. And we used to have to walk guard on this bridge. And I got acquainted with her because she talked English, and I'd give her soap, cigarette.
Right.
Well, we all would, we'd give her stuff, because she was a real nice girl. She was very friendly. She really liked us guys.
And then these two postcard pictures here. This is
this yours.
This is with the town.
Yeah, that there's right there, and we used to put prisoners. Right in there was a butcher shop down there, and stragglers come across, didn't have no passes. We'd put them down that butcher shop.
Right. And this town hall here
that
is in the background.
Yeah,
here?
there's right there. It's all blew to bits.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's pictures in there. It's nothing but brick dust. I got them somewhere. Might be in that book. Yeah, but wasn't that pretty buildings?
They had all painted and artwork on them and everything. Yeah.
Was you ever over there?
Yeah, I was over in Germany. I was there in the 1980s.
1980.
Yeah, but you'd see towns like this where they had it all.
Still like that.
Yeah.
Then a lot of farmers, they live in little villages, you know, and farm out from there. You know, when we was there.
Right.
Yeah, you'd have, you know, they have their cows and stuff, and share the meadow and all that, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have a phrase book here. I guess you got this in England before you went over.
Yeah, they give me that in England.
And everything. It says here, Haines, 629th Tank Destroyer Battalion. That was the unit that you were.
Yeah, we traveled all the time. You know, sometimes you didn't know what to do. You know, and we'd see what we wanted to ask them, point it to them, or they'd. I don't know how we transfer.
Oh, okay. You may not say the words, but you'd point to the word.
Point to the word,
they'd be able to read it and everything, and then you
he'd point, then we know what they're saying.
Back and forth and everything. And these were handed out. This actually it says a training manual, 30-606. So they passed this out in England, I guess, before you went over.
But that's me there. And what had happened, over here to the right was a railroad hub. And then up in here was right here where it's your one pictures where it was taken, where the half track is. It's right up a little bit ways from that is where they done their interpreting. Yeah, right up. It's just a chair there. Well, they done the interpreting right up in there, like guy talked, you know, their language. And but anyway, this girl here, we're cleaning up railroad track, you know, take old ties up so they could rebuild that railroad tracker because they bombed it all to pieces, got the hub. And we're doing this here, and here this, I had 10 prisoners that time, and all of us had prisoner 10, about 10 of them, then had the interpreter, then trucks take us out there in the mornings and to tear up these tracks. And then the rails was bent, you put them in one pile and everything was good, you saved it, you know, then they rebuilt it, you know, to build that hub back up. Well, these women there was hoeing out potatoes up in a field. So they'd wave at us, you know, this German printer would wave, I'd wave. We could talk to him, and see. So he said to me one day, he talked English, see, he was a sergeant. He said, can I go up and talk to them ladies, 3 of them up there? And I said, yeah, if you see a Jeep coming down along the river there, you get down here. I said, you go up. And I'd say it wasn't, maybe about far as here, the red light out here, I guess, up in the field.
Up there at Center Street.
Huh?
The light up at Center Street?
Yeah, right there at the light. But that far, you can run pretty quick, you know. And I told him, I said, yeah, you can go talk to him, but he was a nice guy, you know. He talked about the war because he talked English. He was so glad. And of course, when Hitler had another way, we had another language when we go over. He liked the sound. So he said, can I go up and talk to them people? I said, yeah. So he was up there a little while when nobody come, you know. And of course, there's a group here and a group there. So after a bit, he come back and down. He said, would you want a German friend? 2 of you? Said they wanted American friends, you know. And I said, I don't know. I couldn't see them that far, what they looked like, you know. And anyway, I said, I don't know. We're single, just running girls some days.
Right.
So I said, I got Emmett Booth, a buddy used to come home with me. He's from Castlewood, Virginia. So I said, I don't know if I get him to go. I might take a chance, but don't what they look like.
Right.
And right at the bottom, that was probably further, Ed Wilson's garage. A little further was a quarry, an old quarry, like one at Kate Wagner Road, place like that, where the soft stones was in there, where the stones was easy to break up, and the quarry there that was out of use. You know, it had roads in there, and a couple of old piece of vehicles was in there, junk. And soldiers, all of them had girlfriends. A lot of them, my buddies did. And they'd all go up there and meet up there in that woods.
At the quarry,
yeah. At the quarry. So anyway, I said, I'll talk to Bud, let you know tomorrow. You know, this other soldier, a German soldier, I'll let you know tomorrow. Because they dig these potatoes out by hand, you know, and put them in buckets and put them in piles for them to gather up. So I asked Bud, well, what the heck, we ain't got nothing to lose. You single, I'm single, let's go. So I told him next day, I said, yeah, we'll meet them up there. So they were supposed to set on a log up this one road there. And he told me, and I never up there before. I don't think I was. Booth was, but I wasn't. That's how it was. He'd been up there before. He wasn't sure, but next evening we go up, we get a couple of oranges and a banana. Up where we go.
Fresh fruit. They like the fresh fruit.
Huh?
They like the fresh fruit.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what they like. Yeah, so we goes up and there were soldiers, their buddies, you know, they had girlfriends sitting around like that there. So we walked around and we see a couple sit by themselves, a couple girls by themselves. And he said, I believe that's them over there. I ain't too sure. But hell, we can't talk German, they can't talk English. Damn, we went over there and I don't know what it said, Furline, 2 American soldiers or something, you know. And this girl said, yeah, we're looking for 2. One down here is work with a guard. Well, that was the one I went for her because she talked English. The other one couldn't. So
So Booth got the one that couldn't speak English, but you got the one that did.
Yeah, I got the one that did. And she was the nicest thing. And she never told me she was married to an SS trooper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that, see? And so she told me she lived at Lohr, that little town down along Blue Danube. And the other girl was a neighbor, lived a couple houses down. So anyhow, we did, just sat and talked, and she had to do all the talking because she had to talk for him too. We never got no privacy.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't get no privacy,
Because she was translating back and forth.
We necked like that. So anyway, we met him a couple more nights, evenings over that, and then we took walks. And there were soldiers walking around, holding hands and making all over them, Yeah. So the next thing this one year she asked me, would I come down on Sunday for dinner? And I was going to be by myself, Emma didn't tell me, I asked him. So she said, would you come down to my place for dinner? They're going to have boiled potatoes and cabbage, summertime.
Uh-huh.
So I said, yeah, who's going to be there? And she said, my mother and her mother, grandmother and grandmother, I believe, was going to be there. And some kid, some relation or somebody. Mm-hmm. So I went down by myself, carrying my loaded rifle. I went down. I knew where her place was at because I'd been down there, walked with her down and walked back,
Right.
So I went right down. They was waiting for me, so I had dinner with them. But their parents didn't speak no English. She did, all talk. Right. So then what really happened here was they picked her up. They had roadblocks on checking passes. She got picked up somewhere in the area, and she didn't have the proper pass. So they brings her in here to where this interpreting place was to question her. So when they get in there, some of them recognized it was my friend.
Right, your girlfriend, right?
Yeah, my girlfriend. So they come and got me, and I was up in a cigar factory. They come up and got me. So I goes down, and that's me standing over there,
Right.
And they said, pose beside of her, and she's looking at the camera, and I didn't want nobody to see me.
That's why you're on the edge of the camera.
Yeah, I'm on the edge there. I got my rifle, and she's
Right.
laughing because she knew what everything was saying. But one of my buddies was a guard, till they give him proper pass. But this picture got head off. Later on, after I got married or I was single or something, I showed it to my wife. She grabbed my head off.
She didn't want to see you in the picture with another woman.
Yeah, but she didn't bother her picture. She just took her head off of me,
Right.
But what it says there, printer. Well, yeah, her husband got killed in Italy.
He was in Italy, yeah.
But I didn't know it till after this happened. Then she told me about it.
Oh, wow, that he had been killed.
I questioned her. I said, you didn't tell me you had a husband. She said she thought I wouldn't go with him. She really liked me, So when I come home, tractor trailers come and picked us up. I had 93 points, I think it was, 90-some points. I had pretty near, most of it. I had 5 battle stars, and I was pretty near 5 years of service and
Right.
all that.
So you were at the top of the list to be able to come home first.
to come home. So I want to come home and tell you a book with the 19th Armored Infantry outfit. So when I went to come home, I know how it was. It was about a dozen others in our outfit to come home. So a tractor trailer was coming down that area like a taxi to pick us up. We got our duffel bags and they come there and we all, the funny thing was, pretty all of us had girlfriends, and they was all down there with us. So when we waited for this tractor and trailer to pick us up, we down there and we're all hugging, making over, So she said, I'm coming to America to see you. So she told me how she could find me.
Right.
And I didn't want her coming over here. So I told her, all you got to do is come to Baltimore, go to a post office, and they'll put you right on the road. So that's what I told her. She didn't come over, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
But I didn't want her coming over anyway, but that's what I wanted to give her.
Yeah.
But they were crying, these girls were crying.
Right, yeah, because they knew you were coming home.
Yeah.
You would see you
they knew we would see us some more,
Yeah.
And the men was so shortage over there. That's the reason he's after us, with no men. And like we go through them French towns, they'd stand at the door.
Waving you inside.
There's a $50 fine. Well, I'm making $50 a month is $50 fine.
Not something you want to sign up for.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a large, this looks like from a magazine or a newspaper?
Yeah, that's come out of a newspaper, but our outfit's the one that spearheaded into this town.
Oh, okay.
Our outfit would come in, that's all the reads about it. What happened, how they felt about us and everything.
Oh, okay.
So we come in, our tanks come in, and the boogermaster, the mayor of the town,
right,
he had a National Guard outfit, like you have around towns.
Right.
Took an oath that they'd fight to death.
Okay.
And he worshipped Hitler.
This was in, let's see, it says October 1944 in Schoenstatt, Germany.
Yeah.
This is the town that we're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, he put his troops out, to fight to death. Well, our tanks come in and they got infantry on the tanks, and the airplanes run ahead, hunting targets,
Right.
So anyhow, and we're back behind, So when they come into town, they got a couple rifle shots. So they threw a couple shells in and hit a house, and one of them hit the street. But in this house, it killed an old man and his young girl. So then these guys all run out and surrendered. Run right out and surrendered and never fought.
They didn't want to
It
fight.
tells all what they thought, They
Right.
they didn't want their things kill him. So they surrendered, and then they come in, they hang flags out the window, white flags to warn us, we surrender.
Right.
So we comes in there, and the tanks run all around, and everybody's waving, greeting you, like we were heroes. So the tanks went on outside of town, and our CP come in too a little later because there wasn't no fighting. So we're in there, and people's all greeting us and everything. So some kids said, "Boogermaster's up the street, hung himself." So we goes up, and when I seen them, they was all hanging there.
Okay, the center picture up here.
Yeah,
right?
up there.
Yeah,
They
right.
was hanging there, and I stood right over in there when we first seen it. There's a dog. That's the way their faces, their necks was about that long, because the woman was a heavy-set woman.
Right. They hung the dog too?
You hung the dog too. There's
Oh
the dog.
my
Yeah,
gosh.
Dotson dog. Yeah,
Oh
the
my
dog.
gosh.
And him was a little skinny guy. Down there, his head's there. You can make it out somewhere.
Yeah.
There, I think. Yeah, there he
Yeah,
is. Him. But when I seen him, we went in there. They was all hanging there, and it was the old man and his wife and daughter and the dog. They're all up there where they cut them down.
Right, yeah.
But we went up to see this other place, and when we was up there and we come back, they just cut them down. But we seen them; they was still hanging. And he was there. His neck was stretched, and his tongue was out, and he was a little skinny guy, but she was a big, heavy-set woman. Same way. And the girl, she was a pretty blonde, and she was the same way, tongue hanging out and hanging, and then the dog was on the end. So she was engaged to an SS trooper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he was a real Nazi, he just worshipped Hitler.
Right.
But he had no friends, and everybody was glad he was going because he must have been right mean to him.
Oh, okay.
But them people were supposed to fight to death.
Right.
And they all surrendered, and that's what he upset. He thought Hitler would execute him or the Americans for being that rough.
Right.
But said in the end on that story that they wouldn't have done nothing with him.
Right.
He was only doing what he was supposed to do.
Supposed to do and everything.
And this year here, this year we was doing occupation duty. And this guy is right here, Frank Sigler, that's taking the Hufilage. That's in the Battle of Bulge.
Okay.
That's the one that took all. I used to ride with me to take slave labor and refugees back.
Oh, okay, right.
And he marked it, but he come delivered this to me, and he used my camera. Oh, that's in that bag. But there's me right there. Can you see me there?
Right there, kneeling down in the front, right there. Yeah. What was that? The tech sergeant was your rank then? trying to make out the rank on your sleeve there. Were you a tech sergeant?
No, T5.
T5. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
T5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's where I slept.
Okay, in those barracks.
That's a cigar factory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And in kitchen line, we had a little Polish boy, and he was on KP, and I don't know where his picture's at now, but I used to know all these guys.
Is this you here? Is that where the red dot?
No, but there's a sergeant.
Okay.
A sergeant. That's Spectre, old Spectre, yeah. Yeah, but that's where we done occupation duty from.
Okay.
But that there second one, he went around and see a lot of soldiers. He never got married. Well, he was smart as a whip. Like
this was after the war when he came back to the States. He went around and visited everybody?
Yeah, he went around and seen a lot. Yeah, he went down there. Our kitchen cook, we had the kitchen. Jim Hughes was his name, down in Kentucky. He went way down to see him, and he was a good cook. And when he went down to see him, he got the shock of his life. He lived in a house in the mountains, was like telephone poles planted in the ground, and the weather boarded up with sawmill lumber and then put tar paper around it. That's where he lived, and he said he could not believe that. You know, down them hills, them days, Depression, and they was tobacco farmers.
Yeah.
So he was tobacco farmer. You know, planted pole up and sawmill, you know, all woods, and that's the German.
So here's some of the artifacts that these are actually captured stuff from German soldiers.
Oh yeah, I got
from the war and everything.
Yeah, when they surrendered.
This is what, an ammo pouch, I guess.
Ammo pack, yeah. And yeah, I took out an officer's head. Boy, he'd get mad at me. We picked up prisoners.
Right.
That's phone numbers in there.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, they got their phone numbers, and but we picked up these prisoners.
Right.
And our outfit captured them. You know, they got cornered and surrendered. So we go pick them up, and we take them back to the supply depot. You know, where the Red Ball Express brings the stuff up and takes it back. So when we get back there, we set them down on the ground. You know, they count them. You know, and you leave and set them all down. You know, and these soldiers, you know, they're all happy. You know, and this officer, he had an old sour face on him. You know, so as soon as we pulled in, these black guys drives Red Ball Express, World War II. Most of their job, they come up hunting souvenirs because on your bumper they got like tank destroyers, you know.
Right.
They come up hunting souvenirs to buy pistols and stuff. So they come up there, and of course I don't think they had anything at that time, but they kept wanting this hat. A couple of them, I want that hat, and he said, nah, he wouldn't sell it. So Sergeant Schlossman was sergeant. He was there somewhere, and I told the sergeant, God damn, I wish I'd got that hat before we got up here. You ain't supposed to take nothing from them, you know, if they get captured, you know.
Right, yeah.
So I said, we should take that. He said, take his damn hat. He ain't going to need it. He was sitting down. So I reached down and took his hat off of him. And he was going to me. And these soldiers were going like that, clapping for me because I took his hat. They knew he's done, you know. He didn't have no authority no more. So I got this hat off of him. So that, and then
here's a...
That's that German camera. Yeah.
Now, did you actually use that?
Huh?
You actually used that?
Yeah, we used. That's what I used. All these pictures were taken with that.
Oh, really?
All of them was taken with that.
Yeah. Now, did you get that? When did you get the camera?
Looting it out of the house. We got to Germany, we could loot.
Okay.
That's what they done. They looted. We looted. And I found this, and I kept it all the time.
Really, and took the pictures with it.
It's a timer on it and everything. I never did get to use it, but you can take small pictures and big pictures. See these little ones.
Yeah.
And there's some big ones there.
Yeah.
Like these was all taken with it.
Yeah. Huh.
And some of them big ones there. And then that Frank Sigelman, he used to borrow it, and he made all them pictures in that there out of this.
In the book, or these the ones?
Yeah, he made that up and brought that to me.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Wonder if you can still get film for that, or
and
anything.
then see, you set the film number. If you want a big picture, you put it here.
Oh, okay.
I think
see.
you want small ones, you use that.
Right.
You set it there. I forget how you use it anymore. Yeah.
Is this the hat you were talking about when you were riding the motorcycle? Everybody wanted to.
Had goggles. They deteriorate. There's this airplane down the field.
Oh, okay.
Ain't many of them soldiers could say they got that.
Right.
The captain took a picture.
Right off the guy in the field.
Yeah. Yeah, we was up here along the
Make sure we
road
get a picture
at
of
the
that.
lima bean field. Pole
Right.
limers, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, I guess this is that's a real helmet there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Steel helmet?
Huh?
That's real steel?
That's commander's helmet.
Oh, wow.
That's commander's. Yeah, that has.
You mean like a tank commander?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
commander, a company commander or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Top dog. And where I got this, we got captured a couple minutes later. We went.
Was this during the Battle of the Bulge?
Huh?
Was this during
No,
the Battle
that
of the
was
Bulge?
before we was going. We was spearheading.
Oh, okay.
We come into this town, and it wasn't no fighting much, but they had run into a skirmish. And we'd been moving like 15, 20 miles a day, and we come in a skirmish, and a couple German tanks was up there, and our tanks knocked them out. And when we got up there, it's their Mark V tank was still burning, but we're following the other tanks. I guess it was about 10 of them tanks.
Mm-hmm.
We're following them, and they'd stopped there a little bit, and our CP was going to take out a house, stone house, a farm, little house and barn, and had a couple of cows. When we come up there, to the rear, we spotted tanks up. I went in this house. You looked in there, there's a briefcase and this hat laid on the table.
Oh, okay.
And I personally stuck my nose out and walked in there. But this here briefcase with the papers in and all that, and this hat, and it was two ladies and a young girl was in there. So I took his hat and briefcase and took it out and was going to give it to somebody there. You want this, for that? And hell no, I don't want that. They'll want that. That's an officer's personal stuff, So Sergeant, he was somewhere else. He wasn't there with me. So I took it out, and I give it to somebody, paper, and then one of the sergeants, oh, Christ, don't give that away. Wait till some higher officers and give it to them, Well, I'm going to take that hat. Take the hat. I didn't want, but you don't know what's in a briefcase.
Right, yeah, plans or, some kind of information that they
information
could use,
or what they're doing or where they've been.
Right.
So the next thing, here come a Jeep, had a captain in, and he come up there and give it to him. Some guy gave it to him.
Right.
And he took that. So they moved on out, right? And the German soldier laid back on the engine, and he was still smoking. His clothes wasn't burnt off. They were just scorched and burnt. And he was roasting. He'd been dead, for a couple hours. And right in front of that tank was a German officer, and he had a bullet hole right in his head.
Oh, my God.
And his holster, he had a pistol up here like that, but just a holster, no pistol. So we don't know whether he shot himself or somebody took his pistol and then shot him in the head or what, but he was laying in front. He wasn't, burning nothing.
Right.
So that tank was burnt, and another was up the bottom back. That there was burning. That got knocked out. But our tanks was on up the bottom. Mm-hmm. So anyhow, everything was going, but there was troops are coming up, convoys are moving. So went down the cellar, Sergeant Slaughter Hill, they had cabbage down there and potatoes, and I had a gas stove. We had one to every 3 trucks. I had to share it. So we went down the cellar, me and the Slashman, and we're fixing Spam, cabbage, and boiled potatoes. And
you guys were eating good, huh?
Oh, we were going to eat good. And so Nafe, the one I said he had no education, he was sitting on the porch watching traffic, looking at a book, and goddamn stuff coming up, half tracks, infantry trucks, everything's moving. We're sitting down there, everything's going good, and the next thing we heard somebody coming down the steps. Well, we thought it was our outfit.
Right.
We looked up, it was a sergeant and 2 listed German sergeant and 2 listed men. They come downstairs, and my rifle sat over against the wall.
Oh, gosh.
Slashman's was sitting there where you come down the steps, and the old sergeant had surrender, Right, so we flew up, and first thing was him, where's Nafe? He's supposed to watch around here. Stood up her hand, we surrender to you. Boy, we glad to hear that. He's afraid we'd shoot when soon we threw the air guns. And, they said, we surrender to you. And then we take them outside, and he kept saying, fear, fear, fear. I think that's 5 or something. And so find what it was. He said, fear more down that gutter. It was a drainage gutter, like a Springer.
Right.
And he said, 5 more won't surrender. So, Sergeant, you go get them, bring them up. So he went down and brought 5 more up. And they come up there, they sat there, and then as far as we go to America, we'll go to America, prisoners.
They wanted the war to end real quick.
Yeah, they wanted to get over it. Yeah.
And tell me about this. This looks like a dagger here, I guess.
That's they was worth a lot of money. It's got all for Germany.
Now, alles for Deutschland.
Yeah, they worth a lot of money. See, that's an SS knife too.
Right.
I don't know how I got at that. I can't remember anymore. But a lot of money that. Is that it?
And you have looks like some armbands or.
Oh yeah.
Stuff in here.
That's SS armband.
Oh, okay. The soldiers actually wore these, I guess.
Yeah, and this Muir, you never heard much about that. You remember him?
Yeah, Hermann Göring. Yeah.
He had 500 special troops, and we didn't know it, but what they was tank busters. They head out and knocked out tanks, and then they had pistols, and they took no prisoners, and they didn't expect to be taking prisoners. And I found that there one time in where they knocked out a hole. It was like a planet level with the ground, and they was in that there. And what they do, when tank go by, they run up scattered stuff. They didn't get in a tank with nothing big. They hunting straight tanks or something like that. Get away, they run up behind them and shoot them in an engine.
Right. Oh, okay.
The softest part
knock
about
them out. Yeah.
Shoot them in there. And then they had pistols, but they took no prisoners. So, don't take them either. Shoot them.
Right.
So anyhow, we seen where they was there, and I went up and I seen this armband there laying on one. I took it off. Took it off of him.
It was on one of the German soldiers.
I thought it was a medal. Oh, it had a medal there. I guess it got lost.
There was some kind of like a safety pin or something.
Yeah,
like that. I don't know if that's down. It's not in the bag.
No, it used to be a pin there.
Yeah.
Fell apart. Yeah. I don't know how I got that. But
okay. Well, I certainly enjoyed, being able to talk to you. I think you have a great story to tell and everything, and it was great that we were able to do this and everything.
And I've seen a lot more, other things,
But a lot more stuff to do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there may be a subsequent one or something like that we can set.
I got to give all this to that old colonel that I loaned my car to.
Oh.
Because he's the one put me, I wanted to stay in my outfit.
That's right.
Be with the guys, but I didn't want to be in them damn tanks because they're targets. Ain't nobody like tanks. We had the worst tanks over there.
Right.
Hell, they shoot through ours and we couldn't penetrate theirs.
Right.
And we went over there. They told us we had the best tanks, and we was in England. We'd been to, in pubs and drink with them guys, and they said, your tanks ain't much. And our guys getting mad. Our little short barrel, and they had long barrels on, long as that big heavy things, flat. Well, you see that picture, a big hump up in the air. You couldn't camouflage them, and they were making fun of it, getting a fight over it. We found out they was right.
So all these stories and everything that you've carried for the years and everything, you owe to the colonel when he asked that question, where do you want to go? And he was going to put you in the Air Force, and then he was going to put you in the Navy and everything, and you said you just wanted to drive a truck.
Yeah, I wanted to drive a truck and stay there because I knew drive a truck, you're up and back, you ain't up there sitting in a foxhole. 4 inches up there in the storm, come up and pouring down rain. You sit in there, you pull your head up, And I'll tell you another little story. It ain't my diary. Yeah, I think it's in my diary. Part of it in there, when we moved up to St. Vincent area, we got up there and our outfit was on the lines and they was low in fuel, They sent us up there and it wasn't no fighting up there much. If you want to take it home, well, you keep it. I'll see you in a couple of days.
Right.
You can read it. But you can take it home. It's in there, I think. We went up to the supply the tanks up. So we was in the Belgium side, and our CP was up there with us because there wasn't supposed to be no fighting in that area. It's going to set still.
Right.
And we was up on the woods, and right down the bottom was a little farming village, and like 3 or 4 houses, and they all had shared the ground, and it was a meadow there, big meadow. So, and on the other side, when you threw that meadow, you went up through the woods, and you got up top of the woods, it was Germany. So, as soon as we got up there, we had to go up and fuel tanks, because they was low in fuel. They sent me in Schlossman. We got all that there, mostly. He was the top sergeant in that, and he always rode with me, so we took this ammunition fuel truck. We went up through the mountain, up through the woods, get dirt roads, get up there at the top of the Sherman tank laying on the side, upset. And there's another one right up above it setting up, but he was down over the bank. So we must be fighting up here somewhere, you know. Got a little further, there's a German 88 dug back into the bank that set back in there, and as they come up through that woods, it knocked them out.
Right, yeah.
So here they had to call the Air Force in. So the Air Force, they couldn't get to that tank. And Air Force come in, they dropped some bombs around, made holes, but it hit that 88 there and blew it apart. Well, we goes there, where there's these guys been laying there in the road, and it blew them out in the road, and they'd been run over by other trucks and stuff, you know.
Wow.
Well, here we come up, and they're there, and can't hardly get through because they're laying right in the road. So run right over, and they flat anyway. We got through, and there's a sign up. Keep moving, you're under enemy opposition, here on through. And right that minute kept moving. So he had a map, hand-drawn map. Said, go up through the woods, see the two tanks, there's a sign, you're entering Germany in German language, which we knew what it meant. You're entering Germany and some other writing. There that sign was, but it was full of holes. And there was this gun, you know, that was it. Go straight till you come to the crossroad. When you come to the crossroad, you turn left and go down to a barn. There you'd see 4 tanks, there are your tanks, and the rest is on down that road. So we goes up there, and there's one road to the left, no road to the right. And we stopped there. We're supposed to keep moving, but we stopped, and Larson said, hey, here, this crossroad, that's what it says. We starts down, he said, go on. So went on. We started over at Nova and started to go down a hill on the other side. Here the infantry's dug in. And they're sitting there in the foxholes. We see machine guns. They're sitting there jumping up away. Go back, you know. Chris, I can't go back. The damn bank was that high on each side of the road.
Right.
They're hollering, go back. And we, Jesus Christ, what are we going to do? We can't go back. Names on the holler. They're hollering, go back. There was a little village down there in that town, you know, down the bottom.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do. Couldn't turn around. I couldn't back up. I wasn't supposed to stop. Slider said, go ahead. Maybe it's another crossroad. We go down there, and there we come to. I'd never seen nobody but a cow and a woman and a cow, both dead. Was laying along the road. She'd been dead a while, the cow, because her legs was up in the air, you know, the cow swelled up. Yeah. And this woman laid beside of her. And that's all we seen. I turned around down the road, that hill. They're clapping, you know, give us a, you know, V sign or something. Right. We come up and went down that right road, you know, and down there, here we seen their tanks and stuff. We got a bum steer, you know, somebody didn't do it on purpose, but made a bum steal. Yeah. We wasn't down there too long. Here come 2 lieutenants down there, wondering what we've seen down there.
Oh, said you were actually on the other side of lines over there. You were out in front of the lines.
Yeah, we went in front of the lines. There wasn't no action. See, and they must have said, don't hold your fire. They ain't gonna hurt nothing. Right. We figured, I don't know, they want to get a position. And that's where they broke through, all through that area. It's all pines. You know, way over is pine trees. Right, yeah. And so they was all sitting over and probably all seen us coming down through there. And that's where they come through there, on the way to St. Fifth and Mount.
Right, yeah. That was when the Battle of the Bulge started.
Yeah, that's where the battle started, right through St. Fifth. But we was moving to a new area, you know, got out of that area when they broke through there. Right. But then we fought our way back to Malmate, but we didn't go through St. Fifth. And we used to be there and get supplies at St. Fifth. You know, had a pod depot there.
Well, I'd like to thank you a lot. This has really been informative and everything to sit here and talk with you and look at all the artifacts and everything like that. And I really enjoyed being able to being able to talk to you.
I'm getting off my chest.
Okay, good.
Forget about it now. Somebody said, "Well, I never showed these, you know, a lot of that stuff about it."
Right.
I just put it down and, you know, tell her and forget about it.
There you go. Thanks a lot.